yeah, Smash pricing, yeah, so they got around it, that's good, I guess. I mean, at the end of the day, though, it's like, still not that much.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty bad overall.
Mm.
And so I think they have like Smash at the EWC, which is like the Saudi Arabian Esports World Cup thing. Um,
I didn't even know that was a thing. What is it called?
Oh yeah, it's not
EWC?
controversial at all.
yeah, we have,
Esports World Cup? What the heck
yeah,
is that?
it's hosted. It's they're sports washing themselves. It's like, oh, our oil kings don't actually murder everyone, but here's some esports to like distract you.
Ah, I
That's
It's
see,
like
not
I
necessarily.
like
see.
That's not even necessarily the reason. It's mostly just they want to diversify. So they
Wait, so, like, is this heavily sponsored by, like, actual, like, oil companies? Like,
yeah,
yes,
no
it's
petroleum
sponsored by
like
industry?
golf
companies.
is basically taken over by Saudi Arabia, I believe.
Yep,
Wow.
and soccer is on its way as well. Soccer's on its way.
I thought soccer was already
Boxing
there, but
to some
maybe
extent.
not.
Yeah.
That's it. Wow,
Um,
that's wild. That is insane.
yeah, but the pricing for like Street Fighter or something is like $1 million, and then
Yeah,
Smash is
I'm
like,
looking at it right now. But dude, StarCraft 2? Oh my goodness.
yeah,
I didn't know
they
this
got
game
good
was still
stuff.
alive. Prize pool.
I think Smash is on there, and I think
$1
it's
million dollars for StarCraft 2? That's for this over 10-year-old game? That's in madness. What the heck? Smash? I don't see Fortnite, Teamfight Tactics, Street Fighter, Apex, Rainbow Six, Overwatch, Counter Strike. I
is
don't see
Smash not
Smash.
on there?
I see a
I
bunch
swear
of
to
stuff I
God it
don't even
was.
recognize, but I don't even see Smash.
I swear to God it was on there, but
There's like
whatever.
a sim racing game on here called ESL. What is all this? Okay, well that's unfortunate. I
I
think
swear to God it was there, and like the pricing was horrible.
really.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow, I didn't know this thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't, to be honest, I don't think that Smash situation is gonna change anytime soon. I'm not super optimistic about it. It's kind of it's kind of probably gonna be up to whether Nintendo has like a huge shift in how they operate, which is unlikely to happen
Not
anytime soon.
Probably not gonna happen. They made like so much money off the Switch. It's their like I think it's outsold DS.
I think it finally did. Okay, actually, last
Yeah.
I heard, it was about to. I wonder if it actually crossed the line. Uh, okay, so it's currently 15 million units behind. It'll probably
It's gonna get there. Yeah.
yeah, it'll probably get there by the time the life cycle total
Wait, did it
completely ends.
outsell the
No, because like the absolute insane part about that is that they got to that point without ever giving a price drop to the base
That's
model,
also true. They made
which
so
is
much money without ever significantly reducing the price, or
like
actually ever reducing the
no,
price.
they just didn't. They never like actually officially reduced the price. It was only just retailers who maybe put a $50 sale on that occasion. That is so ridiculously impressive.
Did they
So
outsell the PS2? I didn't know. That one's
uh
really hard to get to as well.
it's
There should
close.
be like a
But I think
Wikipedia page.
DS and PS2 are very close to each other.
Oh, okay. I don't know
And
if
again, like PS2, like that's with like they have multiple versions and they like made it super cheap by the end of it. So
also a
yeah,
DVD player. Like people just bought it to play
yeah,
DVDs.
yeah. So yeah, Nintendo just printed money with this thing. So yeah, they're probably not going to change their business model anytime soon.
This actually might be the most successful console of all time if you just look at like
I think so.
just body splits.
I think so. I think so. I am curious to see. what how the Switch 2 ends up doing. I don't anticipate it'll be like as big a
Successful.
phenomenon, but it will probably be a phenomenon, but I don't know if it'll like because I think the Switch came at a very particularly great time. Or maybe I'm wrong about that, but I feel like
I
it
think
was
it
a con
also had the benefit of the pandemic as well. That
yes.
helped
It
it
had
immensely.
it had several things going for it. That all happened to coalesce very well.
I think
But the Switch, I
people
mean, the
in
Switch 2 will
general.
probably it will definitely sell very well. Like it'll probably even if they don't. I don't know. I don't know what the current news is. I think more or less it's probably just going to be just a hardware upgrade, but it'll probably sell well regardless. Um,
Evan, how's the PC boot going?
The what?
Is your PC booted?
Oh, I mean, I've been no, it never fully shut down. So I've just been recording the entire time since
Oh wait,
Akshay said, wow, good, smash prizing. Wow. Okay. Hopefully
oh
they
wait,
get it
we're
in
still
check.
recording.
Yes.
Oh fuck, I remember that. Uh, I thought
oh
you were
yeah,
on your
I
phone. That's
assumed we were
why.
recording.
Yeah. We're recording.
Oh okay, I thought you were on your phone. That's why, because I see like the
No.
Wi-Fi bar. Oh okay,
Wait, what
okay,
Wi-Fi?
Although
interesting.
yeah, that is weird. I don't know why it shows the little bar there, but whatever.
What do you see?
It shows on our end. We see like a little bar that shows you have a poor connection.
Oh. Oh well.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, we'll trust you.
All right, if this is being recorded, that's fine. Okay, cool. I mean, yeah, there's that. I guess we can move on to our next topic. To be
Yeah,
honest.
Evan, if you wanted to, if you really want to talk about something, now's your chance.
Okay. Um. Yes, I would like to bring to the show and tell a
Mm.
series called For All Mankind.
Mm.
Let me look up some stats about it first. For
Stats.
All
Whoa.
Mankind.
Whoa.
I don't know when this exactly first came out, but let's see. I
I
think
will also look up some stats.
the first series or the first season came out seems in 2019. So unfortunately, it is on
Was it
Apple TV,
is an Apple
which
TV exclusive?
is yes, very bad because Apple TV is atrocious on desktop and anything that is not an iPhone. So and you cannot control the quality. So,
That's scummy.
I bought an Apple TV subscription for like 1 month, and then I watched it. I watched a few episodes on it, and then just to show Mr. Tim Cook that there's interest in that I'm interested in the series, and then I proceeded, pirate everything else afterwards. But it's actually a little bit difficult because for some reason there just wasn't very much like there weren't that many links. Like it took a while to find like a good high quality version and that had like a reasonable amount of seeders. Anyways, yes, it is 8 stars on 8.1 out of 10 on IMDb and 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. But
Okay.
so the selling point of this show is essentially this is basically what would happen if the US did not in fact win the space race. So the opening sequence
Ooh.
is in 1969. The a spacecraft lands on the moon. It opens up, and then out steps two Russians, and they make a whole speech about progress and all that. But it was the Russians, but it was in Russian, and all the Americans are sitting at home watching TV, and they have to wait for the translation to come on because it's in Russian, and that's where it picks off from. And essentially, I guess like the plot is then, as the US, like, what would you do in that situation, right? Like, you have two options at that point, which is either one, to just completely give up, or two, you move the goalpost, as the US had
That's
continued to move the
yeah.
goalpost throughout the entirety of the space race. Because the Russians had the first animal in space, and then they had the first man in space, but we got the first people on the moon, so that's what really matters for some reason. But the intrigue comes in where, like, there's obviously a lot of political debate, and like there's military debate about, like, well, number one, like, why exactly they failed and whether it's worth it to continue. And considering that this thing has like 4 seasons, you can tell that they did end up deciding to continue investing into space. And essentially this is like, this wonders, it tells a story of like, what would human progress look like if the space race had continued for another few decades at least, and then, as with most technological developments, like, they're spurred on by the threat of a Cold War or active war, and it's just the US and Russia trying to outdo each other slowly and slowly. It actually, I would say, for the most part, is like moderately realistic. There is one thing which I'm not entirely convinced on. If it's like science fiction realism. There was this talk of nuclear fusion, which is self-sustaining nuclear fusion, which is potentially controversial
far
on whether
away.
or not hey, if the Soviet Union was still competing with us, like, we would have also discovered nuclear fusion. So yeah. So this
I
tells
wish.
the tale of them starting with like the earlier stages of a moon colony, of like, this is literally just one pod, and like you can fit like 2 people on there, and then as it tells the story of like how it grows, the conflicts of what happens as it continues to grow, and potentially even move further beyond the moon. Also, if anyone has seen The Expanse, which is another great sci-fi show, this is kind of like a spiritual prequel to The Expanse, where The Expanse is centered around how like Earth colonized the moon, which is called Luna, and then from there they're able to extract a bunch of resources, namely, I think helium-3 for nuclear fusion, and then that was used as like the anchoring base to propel humanity throughout the rest of the solar system and beyond the galaxy. So I think it's actually really good. If there's any history nerds too, I'm not actually entirely sure how accurate this is, but I think, wasn't Werner von Braun the space director for Apollo? Or at the very least, this is what it says as part of the show. And I think the show tried to keep it very accurate.
I'm not sure if he was director, but he was the German dude. Well, the Nazi German dude who made the V2 rocket, who they basically took on as like the head of their rocketry department, so to speak, so that they could build their first Apollo rockets. So he was, I don't know if director was his actual term, but he was heavily involved with like a lot of the advances we had back in the 60s and 70s. Like, we probably would not have gotten as far as we've gotten if we had not like had him on board.
Very science fiction typical of the US to take on a Nazi scientist as one of our own.
Yeah, it was certainly looking back on a probably controversial decision, but I mean, that was definitely, it was like one of the things we realized, because like they had because like Germany had invested so much money into rocketry tech, because they thought it would be helpful for their military. So thankfully the war ended before it actually got used for anything, so we repurposed it for our own
To go
use.
to the moon.
To go to the moon, and also, to be fair,
Sponsored by
also
Nazi Tech.
And
so that we
probably
could load
also
some
to
load nukes onto them. Yeah, but
warheads.
which so that's actually one thing I was interested in. So does this also tap in to like the nuclear conflict, or not even just like armed conflict between Soviets and USA? Is that ever like a thing they touch
Um,
on?
there is like there's a lot of suspense and like the constant threat of the Russians, and it's just like a very Cold War esque
Mm,
feeling and Cold War esque drama. I don't. I would say like there's not really too many armed conflicts, and it's definitely not like action packed in that sense. There's a lot of drama and like suspense and action in different ways, as with most things in space, because stuff goes wrong all the time. But in terms of
yeah,
like actual conflict between the two, there's not that much. And I mean, part of that is also driven because of the existence of nukes. Like they do talk about it occasionally, and they're just like they don't want to push the limits too far just because of
yeah.
that risk, and they don't want to actually spark like the start of a actual war, right? So they continue to tiptoe the lines of what a Cold War looks like throughout most of the show. So
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, I really like. I really like the premise, especially I really like how. I mean, I've not watched it yet, but the way you described it, I already picture what that first episode was like, where they literally just like they mirror the sort of vibe of that initial TV recording of like Armstrong on the moon, but
yep.
but they just like flip it on its head, and then it's just it's a Soviet dude instead. That's a really clever way of opening up. But wow, that's cool. It's nice to see some more like hard sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I just double checked the quote, and actually, so I do remember there was some political advertising as part of that speech as well. And so
Oh
the
yeah.
official translated quote is, "I take this step for my country, for my people, in the Marxist Leninist way of life, knowing that
Ah,
today is but one small step on a journey that someday will take us all to the stars." That was the very
Um,
beginning of the first episode.
1 second.
I wonder if that's like close to what they would do if they actually won that race. That's crazy.
Like whether they
I
would
love
advertise.
I really do
Yeah.
dig alternate history stuff. I think that's like what the genre is called.
Yeah.
And is it
Have you seen
more like documentary-ish, or is it more so like kind of like drama? Like how do
I
they
would
present
say
it?
yeah, I think it's a more drama. Like there's a lot
Okay.
of there's politics, and like, they go into topics about like, oh, like we need to find like the internal promotions within the NASA space program. There's drama there, there's politics there. NASA is like being funded by what NASA and the military are like cooperating, right? So there's drama there. And then funnily enough, um because of like the advances, and I'll try not to go into too much detail, but it sort of at some point becomes like the flip side, the opposite of the current way of where, because we decide to divest from the space race, NASA just their budget is like trickles of money compared to the military. But
Oh shit.
they NASA does actually ultimately become profitable, and then they are one of the most profitable uh divisions of the US government. So now they're like, okay, well now people are begging NASA for money instead of, it's like, damn, can we get some money from the military instead?
Hmm.
Which is,
Oh,
it's
interesting.
actually, yeah, it'd be nice if that was the how we funded space travel. NASA is just super mega profitable. It really it does give you food for thought. Like some of it is a little bit sci-fi-ish, like a little bit outlandish, about like how fast the technological development is. Because I would say like uh, there are like some time skips between seasons, but like for the most part, I forget if like I'm not even entirely sure if they've caught up to like quote unquote modern day yet, because like the
Mm.
series starts in '69, right? So there's still like another 50 decades, or not 50 years of like alternate history, 50, 60 years of alternate history to go
Oh, it
through.
covers it covers a lot. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
like it um I would say generally like each season covers like a very is kind of like a snapshot in time of like what what were like the decisions made by the people in the aftermath of like the of the events that happened. So like for example, the first season is like, okay, the event that happened is the Russians land on the moon, and then they cover like the decisions of the people. Okay, how do we react to this? What is the next step? Like, do we keep going or not? And then they sort of like have some sort of action, and they have like what are the consequences of those decisions, and ultimately how does that play out in the short term. But then they will have like a time skip, and they'll say like, okay, here is like fast for like 5 years, here's like the results of those actions, and like here's where we are now.
Ah.
And then they continue on that way.
So I have a question actually. Do you, when this ripple effect occurs, right? Like the this like this alternate history, this like small thing that changed. Well, not small, it's quite big, but like this thing that changed in history, changed this thing in history. Like you see like the chain of events that like causes like the ripple effect. Do you, in the later seasons when it gets closer and closer to modern times, does it look more unfamiliar to you, like as time goes on? Like let's say you get to 2000s, does like does it look like a lot of the places, the environment, the people like look different, or does it like, is there like a butterfly effect that like basically occurs, or does it like mainly like kind of look familiar? It's just that different world event occurs and whatnot. Because I'm curious
Yeah,
about all of that.
that's an interesting question too. Like, so I would say like for the most part, the environment, the buildings, and all that like look fairly familiar. Um,
Mhm.
the technology does have different like there are different implications on like what technology is available. I forget
Mm.
exactly like what is the most advanced stuff, but I remember in one of the seasons like the one guy like talks about like, oh, he's parked in front of NASA, and then he's just fueling his car with liquid hydrogen instead. This was like in the 60s or 70s, and then they're like, yeah, this is the
Oh,
future of how we'll do that.
Mm.
So I would say like
uh-huh.
in general, there is a lot of different political events too. Like obviously the presidents are different. Like it starts
Uh-huh.
with real presidents, right? Like it starts with Nixon and like the outcome of that, and then over time, uh, like it it divests from that. I forget exactly when, but there are like characters introduced as part of the show that do eventually like play a larger political role, and
I,
there is some like interesting implications of that. I'll try not to go into too much detail, but I will say that like there were maybe there's like more diversity in the terms of presidents than we do have now. So that could be part of it.
interesting.
Or at the very least, like there's more diversity than there was like by the time like 2000s rolled around.
Well, it's
Because
all old white people by that
yes,
time,
by that
so
time like it's all old white people. So there's
Yeah.
at least one, yeah, non-old white person.
I see.
Uh, yeah. So which is kind of interesting because like you do wonder like, okay, if we did discover like nuclear fusion and like we're using that to power the space shuttles, like would that actually have dramatically changed day-to-day life slash like the way that buildings and stuff developed? Like would buildings still look the same? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think nuclear
Yeah.
fusion. It really depends. It also depends on like what they want to do with that technology, right? Because if you're saying that like nuclear fusion is merely a source to generate electricity, then like okay, maybe probably not, right? But like the implications of what that creates, then who knows?
Yeah, yeah, there would be like cars, transportation might be different too. Like a lot of
Yeah.
like architectural development probably changes based on that. Um I'm actually curious about one specific event. Does 9/11 happen?
I'm trying to think. I don't believe so. I'm trying to remember if like I think we hit 2000s. The name Al Gore was mentioned, so yes, and there was no mention of 9/11,
Interesting. Okay. Cuz
which is yeah,
that changes a lot actually. Um when it comes to like alternate history stuff, we always like think about like how 9/11 changed US policy in
yes.
a lot of ways. The Patriot Act is like over like it had a lot of power on like American
But
expression and whatnot.
if you're to
And
think about it though, that like I don't think like would 9/11 have happened if you had nuclear fusion?
that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Yeah.
I think even more so than that. So I'm under the assumption then that if this show goes until the 2000s, that so are the Soviets still around in the year 2000? Is that what is that what I mean, maybe that's a spoiler, but um
Yeah. Maybe we save it.
I mean,
Maybe
you'll
that
have yeah,
actually changes.
yeah, you'll have to see.
because I feel like that's a whole different world dynamic if
That's
that's the case.
weird, man.
I mean, I will say like there are Russian speaking people around by then, obviously, as
Well,
like
yeah,
that is the main villain of the show. Uh
right, but like
but like I'll
yeah,
leave
like
it up to your speculation, but if you think about like this is an interesting question like would if they had won the space race and they had a like great quote unquote great accomplishment,
yeah.
like
Would
would
that even
people
change anything? That's huh.
right, but like would there be more internal support for the like the prime minister of the USSR or the president? I
Uh,
forget what exactly they're called.
Chancellor, maybe? I don't know. Oh,
Um
that's something else.
I forgot, but yeah, no, that is really interesting because like I'm thinking like I mean, fundamentally, like the whole structure collapsed for like well, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but it's like combination just economic downfall. Like it just things just weren't working out in terms of um just the raw productivity of the country, and then also just a lot of people losing faith in the whole Soviet bloc in general because they just kind of weren't getting anywhere on a global scale. Um, so then countries start pulling out, and then yeah, the whole thing fall apart. So that is interesting. Like, would it would have that like reinforce global confidence
Yeah.
in uh in the communist like bloc, like that side of the the dual like the first and second world, right? Um, yeah. Wow. I don't know. I didn't really think.
It
I guess
is
that is
it
interesting.
is interesting to think about like the fall of the Soviet Union. The dissolution of it kind of came quietly. It wasn't like a big event. There
Oh
wasn't like
yeah.
a this revolution. It was just like we just can't do this anymore, which is kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, yeah, it was not just like a massive just like, there's no military conflict, massive battle, anything like that. It's just like literally just things just fell apart
Yeah.
internally. And then and yeah, I know that I mean like once you start extrapolating over even just a few years after like something as big as like a Soviet landing on the moon, it gets way too difficult to predict what would happen. But that is what I really love about these sort of shows, the alternate history, because it does require a lot of like obviously you got to take your liberty with a few things to make it interesting, but um, this sort of mental exercise of speculating about those things is really cool, especially if when there's scientific progress involved. Because I thought like Kyle, that was really interesting that you asked like, does the environment change because of this technological difference? And that's something I really love seeing in shows when like if there's a lot of time that passes, you can see the world changing because of like technology and innovation, things like that.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
just wondering if it like
yeah.
all looks like unfamiliar. because like that one little thing, like even if 1969 looks the same, that one thing changing and then like nuclear fusion being discovered, I think like that ripple effect
The
and
the
seeing
the,
like
the
how our
yeah.
modern lives in parallel to that is just so different. I think that'd be interesting.
The
But
fusion thing really throws things for a loop because I think if it was just space travel, maybe not as much, but like having like multiplying our energy production ability by like 100 1000 fold, whatever it is.
and
I mean,
also like
I feel like
it,
that would mean a lot. It's just hard to know exactly what it would mean.
and decreasing our reliance on globalization as well. A lot of like policies made because of like the energy.
Well, one thing I would say on that is like I think number one, like nuclear fusion, it wasn't like I forget exactly when. I think it would have been maybe towards the end of the first season. But also,
Mm,
like they don't really go into too much detail about like how much more efficient it is, right? Because like there is like there is some potential where like if it requires a lot of energy input to at least like get it kick started, then maybe it's not as much of a energy multiplier as like most extreme case where that people imagine where it's just like, oh, it's just infinite energy, right? And it
mm.
does require and it does burn through like some resources, right? Like I believe like um
Yeah, you need like tritium or something like that.
I forget exactly which, and I actually, to be honest, I forget a little bit about like the technical details of like how they get their energy source because one thing that comes up is like helium and how it does end up replacing like fossil fuels. Like throughout the show, like fossil fuels do end up getting phased out, and like that does become a
Mm,
recurring thing of like, okay, what do like that is a large amount of jobs that just disappear, right? Because like that's a lot of coal miners, that's a lot of like oil rig workers that just they they're not being outcompeted. So it's like, what do they do? Um, I think that is like the little bit. That is like the little bit of that's that's why I say like that's where it strays a little bit maybe a little bit too far into science fiction territory.
yeah.
But I will say that like overall, they do try to control the amount of like how far it strays into science fiction. Like the entirety of the show is like supposed to be based around like a somewhat realistic view of how would the world look like if we had just continued to pump money um into the space race, right? And like into research. And it's not like there's nothing crazy like there are no Dyson spheres, there are no
Yeah, yeah.
like there are no like
Faster than light travel or
blasters. Yes,
yeah.
there's no faster than
Yeah.
light travel. There are no blasters, like laser blasters, right? Like
Hmm.
it's for the most part, it looks very much like a normal, like the normal world, but with a
Mm.
few extras. And like there are, like you can pick out, oh, this looks off, and this looks slightly different as well, right? Which I actually do kind of like that about this because it's like it's just it's so close to or it tries to keep close to like what the real world looks like, so then that I feel like that evokes a bit more feeling of like, oh, okay, so what if this really did happen? It's like, what would we look like?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, more alternative history than science fiction. I think keeping in spirit of the premise of the show is important, I guess, too. Um, I had something in mind, but I can't remember. Uh, no, I think the premise is sold on me. I'll definitely try to check it out. I don't have Apple TV, but I'm sure
Yeah,
there's other
that is really
various
annoying.
sources, very other sources. It is interesting that like the landscape of all these streaming services is eerily close to cable now, which is kind of hilarious.
I don't think
Um,
it's as bad as cable was. I think people are
well,
exaggerating,
you
but it
you
is
have things
annoying.
on demand, which is nice, but I just like let's call a spade, you know, like we're paying for multiple of these things now, and they're all going up in price. So it's getting to the part where it's just a natural evolution of what we already had like 20 years ago, which is kind of funny, you know. But
In some ways, in some ways.
yeah, uh, but yeah, lot of great television out there. I can't keep up, to be honest.
I'm trying to think of other alternate history things that came out recently, because the only other thing that came to mind was I've not watched any of them, but there was that one Man in the High Castle, which I think is like
Yeah.
I heard them. Yeah,
have any of you watched that?
I've heard the premise. If the Nazis win, basically.
Yeah,
I've watched
pretty
part
much.
of it. There, I think I watched like the first couple seasons. It was actually really good, but then I started to dislike it because I felt like it was straying a little bit too far into like the science fiction territory
Oh yeah,
rather than like focusing on alternate history. Because I forget exactly how, but at some point there is like timeline hopping. And I'm just like, what?
wait, what?
What?
You mean they're telling multiple
Maybe
different
maybe
stories?
I'm like maybe I'm
Like
remembering
multiverse type
incorrectly.
of deal?
But there was at least I remember one episode where like a character somehow makes it into a version of the world where Germany did not win the war.
What the? Okay.
So, and I think that's when I started to like kind of lose interest in it because I was like, okay, well, now you are
It's
now
getting a
this is a
little
little
weird.
bit it's a little bit unbelievable, yeah. That does not
Interesting.
happen with For All Mankind.
Yeah, I sure
And
hope there's no time travel in this show. That would
yeah.
kind of be a downer.
There's like a
It's
lot
something
of like
interesting
depending of
to oh, I'll say like something
there's like a
interesting
lot
to
of go
okay.
ahead. Go.
Something interesting to think about to like pay attention to is also like how do the spacesuits develop over time? Like there isn't any crazy innovation with spacesuits, at least not that I've seen so far, where like, you know, they have like
Mm,
skin suits in science fiction, right? Like, you know, spacesuits are still fairly bulky and fairly fragile, at least throughout like the 70s, 80s, 90s, which
right,
is
Yeah.
right.
still like I think mostly realistic to be honest. Like I know
Yeah, I
Elon
mean,
Musk has been designing like those Tesla skin suits, but I don't
yes,
know if those have actually been certified to work yet.
we
I don't
don't
think
know.
most things he does is certified to work actually.
I mean,
So
his cars work for kind of. I mean, they run. Um, no, yeah, that is a good point. I mean, I feel like um, I don't know where the tech is when it comes to those suits right now. To be honest, I don't know. So I guess this is kind of speculating a little bit. I don't really know how much effort is going to be put into the whole into technology for sustaining human life in space versus exploration with like autonomously with like robots, because that's just so much more real. I mean, it seems much more tenable in our near future that we're just going to explore a lot of places autonomously as opposed to spending, because all of the extra work required to keep something alive in space just makes things 100 times more difficult. um
that's true.
so I don't really know where that tech is going to go, but I don't know. Hopefully Elon Musk has something there. But that is actually I mean, it's so much larger question. Maybe uh, but thinking what space, like in our timeline, what space travel is going to look like in the next couple decades. Because I feel like I recently read um um shoot, why am I even already forgetting the name of the book? But I was like reading a few different or I was reading a book about like different like takes on like where we think space travel is going to go and like how realistic it is. And like I guess there is kind of like a, I think in general, um like this particular book took a slightly more pessimistic take on it, kind of saying that it's the at the moment, at least, it does not seem like the financial kind of short-term benefit of what you could get with space travel is like good enough to incentivize any decent like technological development into getting humans into space or even like robotics. Because like, I mean, the ideas that people throw around is like, oh, what if we start mining an asteroid or something like that, or like there's something on the moon that's useful. But like realistically, it seems like, I mean, there's nothing really useful on the moon other than a landing point for maybe getting somewhere else. There's the whole idea of mining an asteroid is is certainly possible, but the amount of work required to like hurl an asteroid, the main issue is like actually getting the resources to Earth and actually doing stuff with it, and because that's really the main issue. There's a transportation problem, and like there's so many technicalities to this that like really make these things difficult, and like it's hard to like, obviously it's hard to predict. Like there could be some wild innovation that comes out of nowhere that fixes these things, but it kind of like changed my view slightly on where I thought space travel was going to go. um but
Yeah,
I don't
it's kind of
but
occurring to me now that you mention it, that I think most of the incentive for space travel is probably just like tourism, but that's like locked into like an elite group of people who are interested in doing it privately rather than have it federally subsidized. Which I don't know. I think that aspect of it is just kind of lame, and I don't think that really like innovates technology. I think that's just like that just like tends to millionaire and $1 billion egos and whatnot. So yeah,
Yes.
I don't know.
The show does
Hmm.
explore the like commercial consequences of, you know, colonizing the moon or something like that, or like discovering resources. I will say, like, an asteroid does show up. They do take take an interesting spin, you could say, on like how what they do with the asteroid. Um, that's I think in one of the later seasons. You should see. And then, but yeah, there is also the private sector that like shows up in the series as well, where like, you know, it's kind of like how now NASA, because like
yeah, it's like all
NASA is so
private sector
defunded,
now.
it's like pretty much all private sector now, right? But in the show, it's like there's like private sector still eventually shows up, but now there's more of a competition. But there's also a competition between like the private sector needs and desires versus like what NASA needs and desires, right? And like what their goals are. So
That's interesting. Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that as well. Uh,
you watch it then. I think
yeah, maybe
I binged
I might.
most of the show within like, I think I finished watching the show within like 3 weeks or something. So
How many
it
episodes
was,
is it, and how long is each episode? I should say.
each episode is approximately an hour. Each season has 10 episodes, and I believe there are,
Oh,
I forgot if there's either 4 or 5 seasons. I think there's 4 seasons, and I think the 5th season is slated to come out sometime in 2025, maybe.
Mm.
all
Okay,
mankind.
the next season is confirmed, but I don't know exactly. Okay, it looks like there's 41 episodes or 40 episodes. Probably one of those is probably just like a trailer. Oh yeah.
Okay,
So yeah, there's 4 seasons, 10 episodes per season so far.
okay. That sounds like a lot. I'll say, but I'd be interested in like putting in the background and also like be like slightly engaged while doing some work and whatnot. Um, I will say it's hard for me to like sit down and watch TV, but recently I actually have been consuming a lot of K dramas for no reason whatsoever. But those episodes, oh my god, some of them are like over an hour long, and there's like 16 episodes for the whole series. So I'm going through like 16-hour sessions of like watching them.
A lot of people
Um,
are just way too slow for me now, I feel like. And also like you have to kind of pay attention to them because you need to read the subtitles. Whereas this is
oh my god,
English
yeah,
with a
yeah,
little
the
bit of
subtitle
Russian.
part.
So
Yeah, yeah, I think the subtitle part is
Actually,
I think finally figure out why I can't watch anime alone anymore. Is because I can't put it on the background. That's really it. Like I always have to
Mhm.
be gluing my eyes there. I
yeah.
can't just like turn away for like a second.
Yep.
It's easier with friends, I would say.
Oh, actually, I will advertise one other thing. So, on one other piece of media on the topic of space travel and moon landings, there is a movie that came out recently, which is much less entertaining from like a sci-fi and like political intrigue and like alternate history point of view. But I think it's geared maybe more towards. It's much more geared towards like a casual audience, I would say, or like someone who's like
Deadpool
casually
versus
interested in.
Wolverine.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Actually, it does have Channing Tatum in it, so there is some intersection.
Oh,
I actually don't know how he managed to do
progressive.
both at the same time, but it is Fly Me to the Moon. You guys have
Uh,
seen ads for that. It has
I
I
have
have
actually
not.
a very star-studded cast. The female lead is Scarlett Johansson. The male lead is Channing Tatum. I will say
Really?
Scarlett Johansson kind of
Ooh.
carries Channing Tatum. Woody Harrelson is there too. Yeah, I forget
Woody
what else.
Harrelson.
Ray
Oh
Ray
my
Romano.
god.
This thing gets worse.
Ray Romano is from Everybody Loves Raymond, isn't it too? I
I like
forget if
that guy.
anyone
He's
else.
in Abbott Elementary as well.
Yeah,
Oh.
but the trailer for this is like, okay, well, what if the government was getting some cold feet about their ability to land on the moon, so they do actually start exploring the path of faking it and filming it, and like what happened?
Oh,
Wait,
Oh,
wait, that's
that's
funny. Wait, that
that's
sounds hilarious.
that does sound pretty funny.
yeah, there are some hijinks. It is pretty it's entertaining. It's funny. I would say it's not like a super serious. I wouldn't say it's like a movie that like, wow, this is amazing. It's not like I don't
Yeah.
think you would put this like on the same league as like Interstellar or like Dark Knight or whatever. But it's just like it's entertaining movie, and I think it's like a pretty solid worth of like an hour and a half / 2 hours of your time. As long as you
I
just don't go into expectations of it like being like absolutely groundbreaking or anything.
I think I like that. I like that idea. But I also like know in the back of my head as well that filming a fake moon landing is actually a lot harder than actually landing on the moon back in that time. Because computer graphics didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
And if you look at the shadows of like the astronauts that got there, they are impossible to replicate with practical technology. It's just not possible. The physics of it
Or
is
as the
just
government would like you to believe.
uh,
I see you. I see you
Uh,
drunk the
they
Kool-Aid, Kyle.
they figured
Yes.
out advanced computer graphics before anyone else
Yes.
did. That's crazy.
I mean, it is the government. Like, if someone were to do that, it would be the government. Like, they did figure out GPS before everyone else, right? So,
I guess that's
um,
true. Yeah.
actually, now that on the topic of Interstellar, do you guys see that also? It is
70
the
millimeters.
70
Yeah.
millimeter film is slated for. Oh, actually, Kyle shared it. I think is that
Yeah,
yes,
Kyle
it's
shared it. I still couldn't find out if it was for multiple days or not. I just said it gave one date.
I'm trying to figure out if it's gonna happen around Michigan because I don't know. Like, there's
Oh, that would
barely
be a
any.
well,
no.
what
Oh my
places
god.
in Michigan can you even watch 70 millimeter film in?
The
There,
Henry Ford Museum.
there's no one place. I watched Oppenheimer in 70 millimeters. There's one in Grand Rapids. That's irrelevant. But there
Okay.
is a 70 millimeter high definition screen at the Science Center, the Detroit Science Center, and it happens on their planetarium. Oh, actually it
Oh,
disappeared. Yeah.
Wait, what the heck? The
planet isn't that a
planetarium.
little bit weird?
Do you have
Like
to like bend your
the
neck
angle
back
is
and?
weird because you have
No,
to
no, no,
look
no,
up,
no.
right?
I didn't have to bend my neck. The seats like recline like all the way, so like my face
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
actually faces up.
yeah. You
Um,
don't have to like
okay.
bend your neck, but it's still like a different viewing angle, which is interesting.
it's crazy. I would say when the explosion happens, it like entire like peripheral vision, right? If you can
Mhm.
imagine a planetarium, right? It looks like you're looking at a dome of night sky. It like literally covered. It was insane.
That's pretty
It was
interesting.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Well,
I'm
I will
kind of
also
jealous.
say that like everyone knows about the Oppenheimer like sex scenes and whatnot. One of my friends made a joke. It's like that's like the biggest pair of boobs I've ever seen in my life.
No.
It's
Okay.
probably true. Uh,
Um, yeah.
That is
Is it
definitely yeah.
super hard to get tickets in Detroit? Because it was
it,
extremely difficult to get tickets for Oppenheimer in like the Bay Area, and they
I
were
think
showing it for like
it was
multiple weeks.
it was more low key, and I was able to get it on a pretty good day, I would say. Um,
Hmm. Okay.
so that was fun.
Well, did you go on a weekday or a weekend?
A weekday. I definitely went on a weekday.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, because it's a lot. Actually, I think they were at least in the Bay Area. They were only showing it on weekends as well, or at least like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Um, there were some like super weird showtimes, like Sunday 10 p.m. actually had a lot of free seats, but like that's not really realistic because
yeah.
you have to drive all the way to
Yo,
San Francisco and then back.
yeah, we had a lot of showings actually. It was like on there for like the whole month, I feel like. And there were like a bunch of showings, and I just picked the one that was like convenient for everyone to me. Uh, so yeah, I mean, like hopefully, the Detroit Science Center saw the demand for that and does it for Interstellar as well when re-releases. But we'll
Yeah.
see.
That would be amazing.
All right,
All
well,
right,
go watch For
Good
All
stuff.
Mankind.
all of mankind. I like that title because
For All
it's what
Mankind.
they say for all mankind. It's the thing they say after they land on the moon. Wow, good stuff. Good stuff.
Um
All right, I
it's
will. Well, Akshay.
what was I about to say? Um did did they say for all man? I'm trying to remember what Neil Armstrong said now.
It's one
He didn't
step.
say
It's
that.
one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. That's what he said.
Yes,
Not For
okay.
All
Just one.
Mankind, but
Not for
Yeah.
mankind
all
was in
mankind.
there.
He said for mankind.
I think
One
it's
small
like
step for man.
yeah, okay. That's what he said. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha. Anyway, yeah, but I don't know. This sounds sick. I'm surprised that they. I mean, I'm glad a show like this exists, and I'm also surprised that Apple TV, like this was like it looks like this was one of their first things that they made, like as an exclusive, which is
Actually, yeah. I think it might have been
interesting
Foundation
choice.
also came around then, I think. Foundation is also really good, by the way. It's sci-fi.
Oh, is
It's
that based on the book series?
yes, it's based on the Asimov series. It does deviate from the books a good amount, which is kind of controversial, but I think it was
Mm.
still mostly very entertaining. I do think like they do make something interesting, which is the topic, but the emperor of the galaxy like is actually three emperors, and it's basically just like continuous clones of the last king of
What the heck?
the last emperor. So there's perpetually always like an old version of him, a middle-aged version of him, and then a child version of him at all times, and those are like the three emperors for the, which I thought was actually really
Wait,
cool, like having
wait.
a genetic dynasty
That's sick.
for a like a galaxy spanning uh, kingdom.
I
But
think
I think it's still worth a watch. Like I would still like I enjoyed it. I am looking
Mm.
forward to the next season. Sharong really likes it too, so I think it's still worth a watch.
that is a very interesting out of context thing that I heard that I think is quite intriguing. Apple TV has like a lot of cool stuff. I think their most popular show is like Ted Lasso. And I think I might check that out honestly too. But
but not actually on Apple TV.
Yeah, I don't think I'm actually going to get Apple TV anytime soon.
well, I mean, like I have like a few things that could pay for Apple TV. But the hassle of subscribing, you know what? There's too many subscription services. I'm subscribed to a lot of them,
Well,
so I don't
it's not just that, but
really
like,
want.
you can give it a try, but like once you try using the web view of Apple TV, you're just like, okay, yeah, I like no, I don't want it.
It's
I'm gonna pirate
it's
this.
probably as bad as Peacock, if I had to guess.
It's just
Peacock's
like
pretty
yeah,
bad.
it's just kind of laggy. It you can't change you can't force a certain resolution. You can't even prefer like high. You can't even just say like, oh, I want to like prioritize high quality versus like bandwidth and stuff like that.
That is annoying, and that is something that like a lot of these streaming services do.
Yes.
Um, and I really do not understand why. It's like, bro, like I can afford the band. I
Yeah,
don't get why.
it is very annoying. And like when that happens to me, when I'm trying to watch Netflix and for some reason it just thinks that my internet is too slow for it and just drops the quality, I either stop watching it or I just go ahead and that's when I go pirate it because I'm just like, okay,
Mm.
you know,
Or
I tried the legal way and you know, it's just not good enough.
is actually just not gonna. It's odd that companies do this. They just make it like incredibly hard to enjoy things legally. Um.
Yep.
All
Right.
right. Well,
Well, I will
That's
I
cut
think
it
we
good.
can
here.
wrap up. Honestly, like I need to like leave.
Uh,
So this is a good stopping point. I think we had a good discussion.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm glad we brought an end to the our half podcast last time.
yeah.
yes.
Good to be consistent.
Unfortunate that Anuj died in an oil fire, but that's okay.
Mhm.
Um,
He'll be back though. He'll be back.
God,
Yes.
well, we got it done. He will be back for. Are we on month 3? We'll be on month 4.
Ye-
Um,
we're doing month 3. Our month 3 is our next
on
one.
3. We're on month 3. So
Yeah.
next one's
No. This is our isn't this our second?
no. This is our third.
Oh,
Our
sorry.
first
You
was
recorded the
I
first
was
one. Yeah. You're right.
the
This is
first
our
was
third.
when I was recording,
Yeah,
right?
that's why I only see 2 of them here. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And then our second one
Hmm.
was when I was in LA for whatever reason, right? And then our third
Gotcha.
one is now. So we're gonna be on our
Yes.
fourth.
All right, sick.
Unfortunately,
Actually,
I do know another schedule, and he's busy for 2 of those weekends, and I'm busy
okay.
for Labor Day weekend.
Oh,
Oh yeah, I'm
And then
also
what's it?
out Labor Day weekend, so
yeah, I'll be driving
Yeah.
back to Michigan on Labor Day weekend
oh,
actually. Um,
I'm visiting
So we're talking
Seattle.
about sometime in September. Um,
Also, are we ever
there's space.
playing Mario Party again, or is this just dead?
I mean, I want to. It just seems like fate does not want it to happen.
Okay. Hold on. I have a layup to this. I recently became an owner of 6 Nintendo Switches. Don't ask me why.
Um,
I gave one of them to a nudge. He technically has a Nintendo Switch now.
oh, I didn't know
There
this.
is
Okay.
built infrastructure for us to play
Wait,
Mario
you
Party
got a
online.
Nintendo Switch that like you could just keep and give to a nudge? Damn.
Yes, I have it. It's like mine, right? I have 6 of them, right? I gave one of them to loan to a nudge, so he technically has one, right? So it
Okay.
is possible to play the other. I don't know if the Nintendo Switch Online Mario parties work with online multiplayer,
They
but
do.
I do know that Superstar has online multiplayer.
The Switch
Uh,
Online ones they implemented multiplayer.
okay, so we can play the old N64 ones if we wanted to, right? Um, I'm free like most week nights. It's actually ironic for me because like most weekends are like usually terrible for me because I'm traveling or doing something. Anuj is he has 2 weddings, and we are not available Labor Day weekend, so that maybe gives us like a weekend to work with.
Wait,
Which is
so
not
what
ideal.
weekend would that be?
Probably the last weekend of September. If I have
Oh,
to
so
guess.
31st.
Yeah, yeah, pretty
I
much.
I mean, I
Or we can
think
or
that
we
should
can
be
do a weekday. That's the only other option.
or we can do a weekday. I mean, I can make a weekday work. I just don't prefer. But if we need to, we can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to cycle it out. It would be nice if Anuj was here so we can figure it out, but no such luck. But I will talk to him and see like what our schedule
Yeah,
looks like.
I
So
think that'll
this
be
is a to
our
be determined,
best.
but this is a very urgent part of our podcast that we also determine what date we have next. So we'll
Yeah,
try to get that up,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think it's important to have to not let that slide. But okay, cool. Yeah, so let us know what a note says
Yeah.
next time you see him. Then
All right, sounds good. I think we can end the recording there.
good stuff.
Good stuff.
See you for the next episode of
Yeah.
the 88 Gang podcast.
You know,